Good morning, friends, and welcome back. Thank you for joining me in the kitchen today. And if you are new here, my name is Kim. And today, if you have caught my last video, I am still working on cucumbers. I have an abundance of cucumbers right now. In my last video, I had just canned a bunch of bread and butter pickles. I did 20 pints of those, so that is great to have on my shelves. And today, I am working on a very easy relish recipe. Now, if you like bread and butter pickles, or if you like sweet relish, this is definitely a really easy recipe, and it is a good way to use up a bunch of cucumbers if you have a lot of them. Now, you don't have to use pickling cucumbers. I'm just using pickling cucumbers because that is what I have. But right here, I had a large cucumber out of my garden that I needed to use before it went bad, and I just cut both ends off of it, and then I just sliced it into chunks. So it doesn't make a difference whether you have regular cucumbers or whether you have pickling cucumbers for this. You can use either one for this recipe. So what I am doing is I am just getting these chopped up. I'm just cutting them up into some big chunks. We are going to be putting them in the food processor today to chop them up and make really easy bread and butter relish. So if you are a sweet relish lover, you will love this recipe. It's really quick, it's really easy, and you can put it on hot dogs, you can do anything with it. My favorite thing to do with bread and butter relish is we eat a lot of fish, and we like tartar sauce. So it's really, really easy to mix up just a little bit of mayonnaise with a little bit of your sweet pickle relish and a squeeze of lemon. Just mix it up and boom, you've got tartar sauce in just a matter of 2 minutes. So it's really easy. But let me show you the abundance of cucumbers I have been working with. This is a video I shot just the other day. So as you can see, I had an abundance of pickling cucumbers. I think there was probably pretty close to about 30 pounds. Now, I used part of them, like I said, to make the bread and butter pickles. I'm also just dicing or chopping up an onion here. We just need 2 medium onions. And I'm starting out with, there's about 7 to 8 pounds in there. I think about 7.5 pounds of cucumbers in there, and I'm just going to use 2 medium onions. But like I said in that video, I started out with about 30 pounds of cucumbers, and I am slowly getting through them. I did manage to use part of them for the bread and butter pickles, and I'm going to use part of them here. And I also have one more recipe coming up that I will be using cucumbers in. Actually, there's 2 recipes that I will be using cucumbers in. One more big one. Ooh, these onions are strong. My eyes are watering. Oh, you can tell they're a fresh onion when they are very, very strong. Whew. Okay, and these are also going to be put through the food processor. So I am just going to chop these up into chunks also, and I'm going to put those back here for now. But like I said, if you are a relish lover, this is very, very easy. I'm going to be canning mine today in half-pint jars because it's just my husband and I, and we do not use a whole lot of relish. Now, once you open a jar, it will last for a good 6 to 8 weeks in your refrigerator. But even in 6 to 8 weeks, I don't think I can go through a pint of relish. So if you have a larger family and you eat a lot of relish, you could always can them in pint jars, but today I'm just going to be using some half-pint jars. Now that the cucumbers and the onions are chopped up into smaller pieces, I'm going to get these in the food processor. And I am just going to use just a regular chopping blade today. I've tried this recipe before with shredded, and they kind of cook down to nothing, and it kind of makes more of a mush than a relish. So just use your chopping blade. Now, I made this recipe last year, and it is so good. You can put it on anything. But a friend of mine also used this recipe last year, and she made a batch that had some spice to it. So if you are a spice lover and you would like to make it spicy, she put in about 2 or 3 jalapenos. So if you like spicy relish, you can add your favorite hot pepper, and you probably don't need to add a whole lot. She said she added, I think she said she added 3 or 4, and it had just enough of a zip. But you could probably add a little bit more if you really want it spicy. But like I said, I like mine for tartar sauce, so I don't really want to make it spicy. I don't know about spicy tartar sauce. I've never tried that before, but one of these days I might make a smaller batch that is spicy. So I'm just going to pulse this, and we don't want to puree it. If you puree it, it will turn to cucumber juice, and we don't want that. We just want to pulse it until it's just tiny, like little relish. Doesn't take much at all. And if you do not have a food processor, I imagine you could just chop these into tiny little pieces if you want to. I'm just using my food processor. This is a really old food processor, but it is still working and still getting the job done. It is missing a foot, so it's kind of wobbly now, but it still works. Okay, so I'm just going to give it just a couple more pulses. I just scraped down the sides there. It is stubborn. Okay, that's all we need. I just have my big saucepan here that I'm going to be cooking this in. So I am just going to do this in batches. And if you can see here, it's just in small pieces, not real tiny, because it's going to cook down, so it's going to shrink a little bit too. So you don't want it real small. So I'm just going to do this in some batches, and I will get this all chopped up, and I will be back in a minute. And I decided to do the cucumbers first because I thought maybe if I did the onions first, I would probably be crying through the cucumbers because those are really potent onions. But I guess they would be tears of joy. I mean, I am making homemade relish. Like I said, this food processor is old and stubborn. So I am going to work on shredding the rest of this, and I will see you back here in a minute. All the cucumbers are chopped up, and now I'm just going to get the onions in here, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm just going to cut them into really tiny pieces. Again, you don't want to do it too much because it will turn into liquid onion juice. I think I can get all of these in one batch. And if you want to put spicy peppers in it, like I said, you can just put them in when you're doing the cucumbers. Just add them to it, and just chop them up real tiny, or you can dice them by hand, or you can even put slices of jalapeno if you want a lot of spice in there. Okay, so I'm just going to give this a little pulse. Take a little bit more to process. So I'm just going to give these a scrape down. Make sure we get them all in there. And give them a couple more pulses. There we go. That looks good. I'm just going to put these in. These are about the same size as the cucumbers. I'm just going to put them in the same pot as the cucumbers. And I'm going to get this all cleaned up real quick. And then we are going to head over to the stove and I will show you how we do this. Hard part is done. And now we just got to get some brine made up in there and get this jarred up. It's really easy to make, like I said. So I hope you get the chance to try this. And you can even make a smaller batch if you would like. And if you do not do canning, or if you don't want to can a bunch, you could always make a smaller batch and just put it in jars and put it in your fridge if you don't want to can it. And it will stay good for about 6 weeks in the fridge. So let me get this all cleaned up and we'll get over to the stove. So I'll see you back in a minute. So on the stove here in my canner, this is going to be a water bath canning recipe. I put 12 jars in here, and those are the half pint jars I'm using today, but you could use pint if you would like. I just put them in here. I've got the heat on about a medium, and I'm just letting them simmer for about 10 minutes just to sterilize them. I did wash them before I put them in here, but I'm just letting them sterilize for 10 minutes. And back here in my little saucepan, I am also doing the same thing with my lids and my rings. I just brought them up to a simmer and I'm just letting them simmer. Just make sure you do not let it boil, and just let it go for about 10 minutes, and I'm just going to keep it at a simmer. Okay, I now have my cucumbers and my onions. I have them on the burner, and this is a really simple recipe. I'm going to add 2 cups of water, 2 cups of white vinegar, 2 cups of sugar, I'm going to give this a quick stir just to get everything all mixed up. Get that sugar in there and get it dissolving. Now I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of mustard seed and a half a teaspoon of turmeric. Give that another stir. Get this all nice and mixed up. Now what we want to do is we want to bring this to a boil. Make sure we get all that onion down in there. We're going to bring this to a boil, and we're going to let it boil for 15 minutes. And the whole time we're going to be stirring it every couple of minutes just to make sure it doesn't stick. But we're going to let this come up to a boil, and we're going to boil it for 15 minutes, and then I will bring you back when the 15 minutes is up. Okay, I left this on a low boil, not a high boil, just a low boil for 15 minutes, and now it is no longer cucumbers. Let me show you this. Doesn't it look just like relish? Kind of hard to see with the steam, but now it looks just like the relish you purchase in the store. One difference is you know what's in this. It doesn't have all the extra preservatives and stuff, and it comes from your own garden, and it looks just like relish now. Okay, so I'm going to turn the heat off on this, and we're going to get this jarred up. Okay, I have just put my towel on the counter, and now I am going to pull my hot jars out that were simmering. We're just going to get these on the counter. Okay, I have all of my jars out of the canner. They are all sterilized. I have my canning funnel. I have a little jar here with just some white vinegar in it. You can just use a bowl. And I also have a paper towel that I will use to wipe the rims of my jar. I have my magnet, which you just use it to put into your hot water to pull your lids out so you do not burn your hands as they are warm. And then I have my wooden spoon, and I like to use my wooden spoon for debubbling. I only use this wooden spoon for debubbling. I do not use it for anything else. So let's get started. Okay, so if you're new to canning, canning is really simple, especially water bath canning, and I definitely suggest if you want to try canning for your first time, you do water bath canning. And I am simply just going to take a ladle full of relish, and you make sure you get some of that liquid in there too, because you don't want dry relish. And I am just going to put it in the jar, and I'm going to fill it to a 1/2 inch headspace. And I will explain that in just a second. And I did taste it just a minute ago to make sure that it tastes really good. And it tastes just like a bread and butter pickle. Okay, and for those of you that are new to canning, we're going to go to a 1/2 inch headspace. And when they say 1/2 inch headspace, that means just a 1/2 inch from the top of the rim. Now, on a mason jar, there are 3 marks. The bottom mark is 1 inch. The middle mark is 1/2 inch. Top mark is 1/4 inch. That's 1/4 inch is usually jams and jellies. We want to go to the 1/2 inch mark, which is the middle mark. Now, I put just a little too much in this jar, which is fine. If you put too much in, just reach in with your spoon and take just a touch out. You want to leave it and make sure it is at a 1/2 inch headspace, because we want your jar to seal correctly. And if you leave too much space in there, you can get too much air, which can cause mold in your jar. So just make sure you stay at whatever the headspace it calls for. I'm going to take my towel. Actually, I'm going to debubble first. Okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to debubble. I'm just going to go around the outside edge of the jar. Make sure we get any bubbles. We don't want any air bubbles in there. I like to tap the bottom of the jar. Go all the way around. This is really easy to debubble because it's so liquid. And now I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm going to dip it in the vinegar. I'm going to go all the way around the rim. Make sure that rim is nice and clean. Make sure there's no cracks on that rim. If there's any cracks on it, you cannot use it for canning. You can use it for dry goods, but do not use it for canning. I'm going to take my magnet, pull out a hot lid. I'm going to place it on there. I'm going to pull out a hot ring. And I'm going to turn this. Get it on there straight. I'm going to put this on and I'm going to turn it until it won't turn anymore. And then I'm going to turn it a 1/4 of a turn. You don't want to over tighten it, just a 1/4 of a turn. And then I'm going to grab my jar lifter and I'm going to set this in my canner. My canner is still on simmer. You do not want to put these jars, when you put them in, the liquid is very hot. You don't want to put it into a cold canner. A cold canner in a hot jar can break your lid and break your jar. It can shatter it, and vice versa. You don't want to put a cold jar into a hot canner. So leave your canner on a simmer. And we're just going to do exactly the same with our next jar. And this relish is really great, especially with the prices now in the grocery stores. The prices are getting really high and really expensive for everything. And this recipe you can pretty much make for pennies. You can use a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of sugar, and some cucumbers and make lots and lots of jars and have years worth of relish on your shelves. Now, I'm going to go in and I'm going to debubble again. And this little batch right here, just in my little pot I use for stew is not a whole lot, but you'll be amazed how many jars I get out of this. I won't have to can bread and butter relish for a couple of years, which is a really, really nice thing when you don't have to buy relish for years. I haven't bought relish in years. I haven't bought relish, I haven't bought pickles, I haven't bought a lot of stuff in years. Okay, we got the debubbled, and now we're going to put a hot lid on. But this will stay on your pantry shelves for years. So if you want to save some money, I suggest trying to can some of your own items just until it doesn't turn, oops, and then finger tight. Just a quarter of a turn, and I'm going to put this one in the canner also. Now, aren't those so pretty? Look at that. Ooh, that jar is hot. Isn't that pretty? Look at that. Looks just like what you buy in the store, but tastes 100% better. And you know every ingredient that's in it. So I'm going to do one more jar to show you. Give ourselves a scoop. And remember, we need to go to that half-inch headspace. That is the most important thing about canning, is make sure everything is clean and make sure you get the headspace right. And they do that for the safety of your canning. And with relish, I always just keep a spoon handy where I can just put another little tablespoon in there if I want, or pull a little bit out. Okay, we are at our half-inch mark. I'm going to run our spoon around the outside edge. Make sure we get all the bubbles out of there. I'm going to clean my rim. This is another very, very important. I definitely suggest using vinegar. A lot of people do not, but I canned over 1,000 jars last year, and I didn't have a single one that did not seal. So I suggest vinegar, whether you're water bath canning or pressure canning. Make sure you get the right headspace and get those seals, or those lids, the rims nice and clean, and every one of your jars will seal for you. Okay, quarter of a turn, and I'm just using ball lids and ball jars. That's what I have. A lot of people are using other brands, which is fine. You can use whatever brand you prefer. I just haven't tried the 4 jars yet. I really would like to try the 4 jars. I just haven't had a chance to get any yet. So I'm going to get the rest of these filled up, and I will bring you back when I'm done. I have a feeling I'm going to have to sterilize some more jars, because I think this is going to make more than a dozen jars. We still have a lot left in this. In this one, I got a little bit too much. I'm going to take some out. Okay, so I am going to finish these up, and I will see you back here in a minute. Okay, as you saw in the video, I had to sterilize some more jars. So I have my first layer of jars in the bottom of the canner. And now I'm going to put my rack in the canner. And now I can put my second layer of jars. Okay, I now have all the jars in the canner. I ended up getting 16 half pints. Now I have filled the water in the canner up so it is 2 inches above the top of the jars. And I'm going to bring this to a boil. I'm going to put my lid on the canner. I'm sorry about the roosters. It is morning and they are awake now. But I'm going to put my lid on the canner and I'm going to bring this up to a boil. And when it comes up to a boil, I'm going to boil it for 15 minutes. And then I'm going to turn the heat off after the 15 minutes and I'm going to let it sit for 5 minutes in the canner before I pull the jars out. I also added a couple of tablespoons, just a splash of white vinegar to my water because I have hard water. And if you have hard water, just add a couple tablespoons of vinegar because if not, you will end up with like a white film on your jars from the hard water. And here we go. All 16 jars are out of the canner. I let them sit for a couple of minutes after I shut the canner off. And I have pulled them all out. A couple of them have already sealed. I've already heard them pop. So aren't they really pretty? They look a lot like a store-bought relish and they taste even better. And you know what is in your jars. So I am very happy to have these on my shelf. So I should not have to can relish for at least a couple of years. So I want to thank everybody today for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you get a chance to try it. So if you use lots of relish, I hope you give this recipe a try. It is a definite money saver. It doesn't cost much to make this, just a couple of dollars, and you will have it on your shelves for years. And if you are a bread and butter fan, then you can go check out my other video that was bread and butter pickles. I just posted that a couple of days ago. So I just want to say thank you again for everybody joining me today in the kitchen. So thank you. Thanks for watching and have a great day.